There have been few franchises that are as elusive to me as Pokemon. People all around me were into Pokemon, whether it be my neighbors or my classmates. I heard about Pokemon a lot as a child in the early 2000s. Because I never really had the opportunity to really dive into Pokemon, I felt estranged from it. It almost seemed like this massive social movement that I had no understanding or interest in. Summer of 2016, of course, was the summer of Pokemon Go, a game that I don't think I've ever played to my memory. For some reason, the act of catching monsters and making them battle each other just never really interested me. It didn't help that the turn-based RPGs were mind-numbingly boring to me. The core nature of Pokemon games made it difficult for me to want to get into them. And if I'm not even excited to try the game, I'm likely to never touch it. I have a very similar relationship to food. If I haven't eaten the food before and it doesn't sound particularly appealing, there's a high chance that I'll never try that food or any other foods related to it. For example, I've had sushi in the past and I didn't really care for it. I couldn't tell you what kind of sushi it was, but I am likely to never try any other kind of sushi again because of my past experience. Pokemon is kind of the sushi in this case. I've played a couple games here and there and gotten bored each time I've tried to play them. Pokemon Moon was my first real introduction to Pokemon, and the only reason I got it was because I got my hands on the 2DS and my friend wanted me to trade Pokemon with him in Pokemon Moon because he had Pokemon Sun. Did I have any understanding of the differences between the two releases? No, not a single one. Did I know anything about Pokemon and how the games function? Also no. I won't talk too much about Moon, mainly because the footage is going to be a pain in the ass for me to get, but what I will say about Moon is that it's a little bit different from other Pokemon games. There are no gyms, there's totem battles instead. It's not really the traditional Pokemon game. I don't think I ever got past the first totem in Pokemon Moon. I think I lost interest and then sold the game. From there, my experience in Pokemon has a long gap. It wasn't until late 2022 when my girlfriend Emily gave me her new 3DS XL with a copy of Pokémon X, which I still play to this day. Pokémon X it's an alright game. It is the first game that I feel I've been able to sink my teeth into a little bit. I have done 3 gyms and I've gotten a pretty decent idea of what I want my team to look like, but the road to get there has taken me, 2 years since I got the game? Pokémon X, while I certainly know it isn't a fan favorite, is the first time I found myself enjoying Pokémon a little bit. I thought the game was piss easy enough and the art style was cute enough for me to get into it. From my understanding, this is the first true Pokémon game with 3D models for each Pokémon. That amount of work must have been incredible. Though after playing Pokemon Violet, I was extremely disappointed in the lack of progress made on any of these sprites. Nothing out of any of them have changed in any meaningful way. These Pokemon look the same way they did on the 3DS in 2013, as they do on the Switch in 2022. But Pokemon Violet is a fucking mess. As you can see, it looks unpolished. And this isn't really an issue with the Switch's hardware either, because Breath of the Wild came out 5 years before this game, and it runs and looks better. This is an issue of Game Freak being rushed to push games out. Don't get me wrong, there are things I like about Violet, but I don't know if the things I like are specific to it, or if they have come from newer games like Sword and Shield, or hell, even the Let's Go games. I have no clue. Things like being able to see if a move is effective against the Pokemon you're fighting while you're fighting it is really nice for new players, and the ability to see wild Pokemon before you actually run into them is really cool. I think, and someone can correct me if I'm wrong, random encounters with wild Pokemon were first ditched in Let's Go games. I have a fiery hatred for RPGs that use random encounters. They were never fun to me. I want to be able to get where I'm going with ease. Give me the freedom to choose whether or not I battle wild Pokemon. If I get to the next town and I die at the gym because I didn't fight enough Pokemon along the way, that is on me, and I should be allowed to suffer the consequences of that action. You would think that this would mean I would have an incredibly hard time playing the old Pokemon games, and to some extent, you're correct. I still don't think I could get into Red and Blue simply due to the lack of color. I know the Let's Go games are kind of remakes, not really of those games, but with how different those games are mechanically, I don't think it would be the same as playing Red or Blue. It might sound silly, but the lack of color does make it hard for me to enjoy these games. This then would make Gen 2 a much better contender. When picking which game to buy on the 3DS eShop while it was still open, I found that Pokemon Crystal appealed to me the most. I couldn't decide if Silver or Gold was better, so I said fuck it and went with the sister release. I have zero experience playing Silver or Gold, so I don't know how different Crystal is from them. I'm sure King K or someone else has made a video essay about why they're different or whatnot, but I'm here to tell you what finally broke me into Pokemon. And what finally broke me into Pokemon for good is Pokemon Crystal. While I haven't gotten super far in it, the gameplay you're watching is from an emulator because again, 3DS capture cards are a fucking nightmare to get and they cost a fortune. I have found that Crystal hits the sweet spot. It feels old enough that I can experience the start of the series without missing out on something as basic as color. There are, of course, things that I miss from newer games, such as XP share or being able to see which moves are effective, but honestly, the lack of content makes the experience much more streamlined. So while this video is technically about Pokemon in general, and why I've struggled to get into it, it's also a mini review on Pokemon Crystal and why I love it so much. Firstly, let's start with the setting. Johto is a beautiful region. This region's focus is on nature and ruins. It seems to take inspiration from Japan's rural countryside, which is a part of Japan that I love. Look at me, another typical white guy jerking off Japan. Nice, very cool of me, wow. In all seriousness, that inspiration runs deep in this region. There are ruins, caves, and lots of forests to explore. I grew up in a small town with a population of about 1,500 people, and this game feels a lot like that. Tiny towns with loads of history and tons of nature all around. My hometown is right along the Mississippi River. Going into Violet City and seeing the water there just gave me a similar vibe to being back home in Illinois. Just a tiny town right along a river with a rich history and interesting people. I didn't feel this sort of thing when playing X, Moon, and especially not Violet. I think the old pixelated graphics allow me to more easily map my own experiences into this game than other games have in the modern day. When the game is already super detailed and large, it can be a little bit difficult to relate to the world, but the graphic limitations of the Gameboy Color make that suspension of disbelief a bit easier for me. This is a purely subjective thing, and I could totally understand why someone heard me say this and think, what the fuck is bro yapping about? It's a silly Pocket Monster game, and yeah, it is a silly Pocket Monster game, but I think that a game being immersive to the player is really important for someone to enjoy it. Being immersed in a world is almost always a subconscious experience. You're not actively thinking, whoa, I'm really deep into this game right now. It's more that you lose track of time, and the only thing on your mind is what's happening in front of you. You're in the world, and I love that. Moving on from graphics and setting, the Pokemon in this generation are really cute, and I love the art style of these tiny sprites. I'll list a couple of favorites of mine, and yes, some of them will be from Gen 1, and no, I don't know which ones are from Gen 1 and which ones are from Gen 2, so fuck you, person in the comment who's about to correct me. I don't care. I also just made that person up. I think we should call him Mr. Straw. Mr. Straw Man. It's a good name. I'd say my favorite so far has been Cyndaquil. I normally go with grass-type starters, but Chikorita just kind of looks like a weird green blob thing, so I went with the fire type instead. He just gives the vibe of like a ferret. Like, Cyndaquil is exactly what I imagine a fiery ferret would be. A badass little guy with flames coming out of him. Some of the other designs I like are Whooper. Just look at this little fuck. Look at that smile. I want to hug him. Paras, or Paris, I don't know how to pronounce it, is also cool because, well, mushroom. Finally, I really like Growlithe. Just a good fire dog. Big fire dog. Very cool. Of course, battling your Pokemon is a whole other story. While I do miss XP share from the newer games, I have found that without it, I often felt that I have a more intimate understanding with each of my Pokemon. While playing Violet, I often felt that I didn't really understand my various Pokemon and how their moves impacted my team, or what other moves I would be weak to or strong against. It was just very hard for me to get a grip on it. But having to grind out each Pokemon that I get in order to level them up takes longer, sure, but I feel like I get to know them better. I feel like I could appreciate them more, and the work that was put into each of them by being forced to use one of them is just great, and I have a better understanding of what they're about. So far, I have only completed 2 gyms in Pokemon Crystal, and I'm really close to getting my 3rd, and I hope to someday complete the game. I don't know if I'll ever fill out the entire Pokedex, I don't know if I have the fucking time for that, but I at least like to complete the main story. As of now, my team consists of Cyndaquil, which has evolved into Quilava, and this covers our fire-type damages. Moving on from there, we have Poliwag, which covers the water types, and then I've got a Bellsprout to cover grass types and poison. I love Bulbasaur, but this will have to do for now. We also have Paras, or Paras, which is a bug type and a grass type. A bit of overlap here, but I'm using the bug type to evolve them quickly. I may not keep this one in here forever, but it does have cool mushrooms on its back, so yeah. We've also got Geodude to cover my ground types and rock types, and finally we have Togepi? I don't know how to pronounce it. I don't know how to pronounce any Pokemon names. I'm a fucking idiot. I don't know if all of these will be mainstays. I may find that I want a ghost type or a flying type the more I play. I know that for sure I will want an electric type because I know they have very, very few weaknesses and so many strengths. For now though, this is a team that I am venturing through the caves and woods of Johto with. Honestly, it's been a lot of fun this far. I've really enjoyed it. I know many of you who watch my channel are fans of Minecraft, so I have a recommendation that you might enjoy. Cobblemon is a mod that adds Pokemon to the world of Minecraft. Pixelmon used to be the premier choice of this, but the 3D models look like shit in Pixelmon, and Cobblemon is a newer, fresh mod from what I can tell. When you join a new world, you can pick a starter from any generation. While this may seem daunting, there are some ways to narrow down your choice. The simplest choice would be to start with whichever generation you already know the most about. If you're like me, you likely haven't played a lot of Pokemon games, so it would be best to pick the ones that you are somewhat familiar with. In the event that you don't know much about anything about Pokemon, and this video has somehow gotten your interest, I think Gen 1 starters are a great choice. It's, good to see where this series began, and Bulbasaur is fucking amazing. Beyond that, I'm more familiar with Gen 2 and Gen 6 starters. If you want to get an idea for what modern Pokemon is about, perhaps check out starters from Gen 9. Regardless of what you pick, you'll be able to very quickly get into the world of Pokemon through Minecraft. I'd honestly love to host a server with this mod, it would be hella fun. The only issues I have found with this mod so far is that the text when battling moves way too fast and is kind of hard for me to read. Otherwise, you'll be able to train and run around with your Pokemon in the world of Minecraft. There are no random battles. You see a Pokemon and you think you can take it on, you simply approach it and throw your Pokemon at it with the R button. If you like that mod and it gets you into Pokemon, I suggest emulating some older games. Now, I would never condone piracy, but if Game Freak and Nintendo aren't selling these products anymore, they aren't losing money by you pirating it. As always, if you're going to download ROMs, know that it is technically a crime. If you have a legal copy of the game, you can rip it onto your PC if you know how to do that, and that is completely legal. That is your copy of the game, and you have the right to do with it what you please. That being said, please don't pirate the games. Oh no, that would just be awful. Don't do that. Video game preservation? Never heard of them. If you find that the old Game Boy graphics can be a little bit outdated, lots of the older games have remakes on newer hardware. The Gen 2 games were remade on the DS in the form of Heart Gold and Soul Silver, but if you have a Switch, I recommend heading to the local game store and just finding a used copy of Sword or Shield or Scarlet and Violet. Those two games are pretty big on the Switch, and you're bound to find someone having it for sale somewhere. For pretty cheap, too. They're not exactly the most beloved Pokemon games, either. I just want to find the 11,780 votes. To end this video off, I just want to say that sometimes it's really hard to break into a franchise, but if you dedicate a bit of time to it and you allow yourself to be immersed in an experience, I think most people can get into anything. At the very least, since I know that a lot of you are Minecraft fans, I hope the recommendation of Cobblemon helps you put your foot in the door. I'll have a link to the mod in the description below. It's fantastic and the artists deserve more credit. Anyway, that's it for today. If you want to see me cover more Pokemon in the future with video essays or like, let me know in the comment section below. Thank you all so much for watching, and consider becoming a member, and I'll see you guys all in the next video. Bye-bye!